Hi everyone, it's Don from Don's Family Vacations, and I know I like to keep things upbeat and talk about the great things of cruising, and I've been on literally shortly it'll be near 100 cruises. I think I'm at 85 right now. So that being said, not everything is glorious and rosy when you're on a cruise ship. So today I'd like to bring, especially for you first time cruisers, I'm going to give you a beware video about 10 things that can absolutely go wrong on a cruise and things you have to be aware of. So, yeah, we're going to talk about them right after this. Number one is you never know when a storm is going to come up, and usually the cruise lines do a pretty good job of guessing when and where not, when not to head out of port or something like that. But just last year, the Anthem of the Seas got stuck in a storm, and it was the only cruise ship out of four in the port that actually left trying to make it to their destination, and they got caught in a storm, and yeah, a lot of people were upset. So you just never know what can happen, and you might get caught in a storm, and it can be a pretty frightening experience if it's a big one. Number two, a very terrifying thing when you're out in the open ocean, especially if you're on a transatlantic cruise, fire. And fire does happen on cruise ships. Numerous ships have caught on fire and been completely devastated. Um, Believe it or not, 60% of all fires on cruises are caused by people flicking cigarettes off their balcony or things like that. They are so used to doing it when they're out walking or when they're driving, they'll flick it out the window. And on pavement, it's not a big deal. But when you're on a balcony on this ship and you flick your cigarette overboard, with the wind that is out there on the ocean, that's not going into the ocean. Chances are it's going somewhere in somebody else's balcony or onto another area of the ship. And that's where 60% of all fires are caused. So if you're smoking, please don't do it on your balcony. Please do it in the designated smoking areas that are protected from the fire. And yeah, let's everyone be safe out there, because you don't want to be in the middle of the ocean and have your ship on fire, because there's nowhere else to go but into the ocean. Number three, sickness on a cruise ship can catch like wildfire. It'll start with one person, it'll hit 10 people, then 100 people, and I've seen ships actually turn back to port because so many people got sick on board. Sometimes it's a food poisoning thing, it could be the norovirus, it could just be a flu going around. And when you're on a confined space, especially if you're on one of those cruises that are at sea for like 3 days, hit a port and then 3 days back, you can definitely tell how quickly sickness can spread if somebody on board gets sick, that in a contagious way. So beware of those situations. There's lots of hand sanitizers everywhere. Please wash your hands when you come out of the washroom. Things like that will go a long way in making sure sickness doesn't spread on a ship. Number four, crime. Believe it or not, crime does happen on cruise ships. And a lot of it is not what you expect. You would expect like somebody in your stateroom to steal something along those lines, but no, quite often it's assault. In fact, if you look at this diagram, look at the cruise ships in compared to other states in the United States as far as rape per person is considered. It's like right in the middle of all the states in the United States. So, be careful when you're out there. A lot of these things are caused when you get too drunk and too carried away that you don't really know what you're doing. And you can get yourself into a very bad situation sometimes. And lots of times the police and security are called. And when you get to a port, some people are arrested and locked in jail, and the cruise ship continues on if you're creating a disturbance or you've assaulted somebody. So please keep aware of this on cruise ships. It doesn't happen often when you think about how many cruises are going out per week, but just be aware that there is crime on a cruise ship. Number five, speaking of crime, A lot of the crime that happens is when you're on shore on a shore excursion and you get robbed, either pickpocketed or out and out robbed with a gun. Some people like to stray into areas they're not aware of, and they don't know that it's a high crime area, and they see some tourists walking in with their cameras and everything, and you're just a prime target to get robbed. So know where you're going. Choose trusted sources when you're outsourcing yourself for a shore excursion, like the cruise line shore excursions. Quite often, those are the safest that you can possibly do when you're on some countries. So a lot of people like to save money by booking shore excursions themselves, not through the cruise line. But at least with the cruise line, you know you're usually going to be with a big group of people, and there's less chances of something going to happen, and you have less chances you're going to get robbed. Number 6, getting seriously injured or have a heart attack or a stroke on board. If you don't have medical insurance and you have to get airlifted off into another country, it can run into thousands and thousands of dollars. And so that's why I always recommend to people to have at least travel insurance. Cancellation insurance, weather insurance, all this other stuff, I could care less, but I don't want to see people stuck for medical expenses that can actually bankrupt you in some cases. You know, I've seen bills $100,000, $110,000. People lose their homes over stuff like this because they didn't bother taking out a $40 insurance policy for their trip. So very serious things can happen. You can fall, you can break your leg, your shore excursion vehicle can be in an accident and overturned. You can get seriously injured that way. You could just slip and fall, you could have a heart attack, you could have a stroke. All kinds of things can happen on a cruise, so please be safe and make sure you get that medical insurance, so at least if something happens, it's not coming out of your pocket. Number 7, on some cruises, especially in the summer and on spring break or on holidays, you're going to get partygoers from colleges and universities, and they tend to really overindulge some of these, and because they'll buy the drink package and then they'll drink 20 and 30 beer in the evening and just get so hammered that they're out of control and rowdy and boisterous and just acting basically a lot of times like jerks. And if you're just looking for a quiet, easy vacation, I would completely avoid these type of cruises. Not saying that all college students do this. I'm just saying in particular times of year, like spring break, on a 3 or a 4-day cruise, those are the party cruises, and people just get drunk out of their skulls, and it can be very annoying and very loud in the hallways when you're trying to sleep, when they're coming back from the bars at 2 and 3 in the morning, and they're just partying it up and yelling, and you're trying to sleep with your kids. So this does happen on cruise ships. Security does their best, but if there's 200 drunk people on the ship, the 5 security guards on the ship are not going to be able to do a whole lot. So beware of those type of areas, those times of year when the partygoers are on those short excursions. Number 8, you can be late for a cruise ship and you can miss your cruise ship completely. A lot of people just say, oh, the ship will wait for me. Yeah, no. Sometimes it'll wait up to an hour. Sometimes it'll wait 10 minutes and then go. So when they say be back at 5 o'clock, I'd say be back by 4 o'clock, just to be safe, because the expenses of being left in, say, Bahamas, and your cruise ship is sailing off to Miami, you're going to have to pay for the hotel overnight, you're going to have to pay for your flight back, you've missed part of your cruise, your luggage is still on board the cruise. Yeah, you're just going to be out of pocket a whole lot of money. So don't be late getting back to the cruise, because it happens way too often. Speaking of getting drunk on a cruise ship, number 9 is people falling overboard. There's 2 usual reasons why people fall overboard. Number 1, it's a suicide. Lots of people decide that this is the way they want to go. I'm not sure why, but it is a popular way to do it. And number 2 is you get so drunk that you climb into areas of the ship or you fall over off the balcony. And a lot of people say, oh, I wasn't drunk, and then when they show the films from the cameras on the board and they see these people just pounding back 10 beer within an hour and a half, and then they go to their stateroom and they fall outside their balcony when they're outside. It does happen quite a bit out there. Something cruise lines don't like to talk about, but a good 80% of all people overboard are just drunk, and they fall overboard, because if you look around, it's very hard to fall off a ship. You have to kind of go out of your way to fall off your ship, especially not even in your balconies, but up on decks. Like, they have huge fences and huge walls, and I've seen people climbing up there to get a selfie and things like that, and a big breeze or anything they could just fall backwards and off the ship. So it's really kind of stupid. And I hate to say it, but alcohol does play a factor in 80% of people falling overboard. So watch your alcohol intake, like we talked about before. And if you're going to get drunk, maybe get an inside stateroom. Can't fall overboard in an inside stateroom. And number 10, the worst possible thing that can happen to you on a cruise is the ship sinks, or starts to list and starts to sink. The most recent ship was, I believe, the Concordia, where it was 100% the captain's fault that ship sunk. And it took a few people's lives, and it ruined a ton of people's vacation. Millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of damage to the ship, and to resurrect it and things like that, to get it out of the shipping lanes. But the ship, apparently the captain himself, wanted to go close to the shore and blow his horn because he knew somebody on the shore in that area, and it ran aground on a reef and ripped open, and within 15 minutes was listing way to the left, and within an hour it was half submerged. So yeah, you just never know. Most people out there, especially in North American cruise lines, are really particular about their captains, and it's unheard of almost for somebody to do that. This captain was a rarity by far. I've even heard the tape recordings of him trying to get off the ship and abandoning passengers with his crew. And the port authorities were yelling at him to get back on the ship to tell us what's happening so we know where to go and how to rescue people. And he was just refusing to do it, and they actually brought him up on charges and arrested him for this. So worst thing that can happen is ship sinking. And while we're on that topic, when you're on your safety drill, like every single person has to do when you get on your cruise, on the day you get on the ship, pay attention. It probably will never happen in your lifetime, a ship sinking or a ship catches on fire. But if it does, you don't want to be saying, now, where did they say for me to go? What did they say for me to do? Pay attention to those safety drills. It's only 10-15 minutes. You spend a lot more time searching things on your phone, so you can take 10 to 15 minutes to make sure you and your family are safe if something happens while you're out on a cruise. So there you have 10 very bad and very scary things that can happen to you while you're on board a cruise. A lot of these things you can control, and some of these things you can't control. You can't control if the sickness starts going around because of other people's uncleanliness. You can't control other people getting drunk. You can't control a ship sinking. But you can control what you've contributed into these things. Like, you cannot flick your cigarette butts off your balcony. You cannot overindulge and get drunk so you don't fall off cruise ship off your balcony. Things like that. So a lot of these things will never ever happen. I've only had one occasion of somebody going overboard in 85 cruises. I've never had a ship sinking. I've never had a fire on board. So the odds are pretty good none of this is ever going to happen, but you'll want to be prepared, especially if you're going on your first cruise ever. Some of these things can happen, and you have to be prepared for it. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more tips on cruising and trips around the world, please hit the subscribe button. And if you have any comments or you have any questions about cruising, please feel free to leave them down below. I get back to every single person who asks me a question, usually within 24 hours. So as more people are coming on board, it's getting harder to get back in 24 hours because some days I have like 100 questions on one of my videos. So I do get back to you though. I answer every single comment, guaranteed. Until next time, have a safe and a great vacation.